So when I was a sophomore in high school, I had this teacher who would only let the students in her class use the restroom one time per semester. Well, one day I raised my hand and I was like, "Excuse me," I don't remember her name, "can I please use the restroom?" And she was like, "No, you can't, because you've already used the restroom in my class this semester." Well, excuse me, you can't dictate my bladder. So I'm like all frustrated, and I started secretly texting my mom because I wasn't allowed to use my phone in class. And I was like, "Mom, I'm sitting in class right now, my teacher won't let me use the restroom." And she was like, "I'll take care of it for you." And I was like, "Okay." So like 5 minutes goes by, and all of a sudden my teacher's phone starts ringing, and she walks up to it and answers it, and she's like, "Hello?" "Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, thank you." And then she walks up to me like so angry, and she like slams the pass on my desk, and she was like, "Since you have to go that bad." And I was like, "Yeah, I really do, thanks." And I got up and left. I didn't even have to go to the bathroom. It was just the principle of it. I just roamed the halls.
I had a crush on my brother's best friend. We're gonna call him Pedro. One day, my brother and Pedro had a plan to go to the beach together, and then Pedro invited me. And I was like, "Let me check if I have something to do." I don't. I'm going. I'm gonna go, Pedro. Don't worry. The night before, I was like, I need to look scandalous. Like, so scandalous. So I remember I wore this two-piece bathing suit. So long story short, the day came and we went to the beach. So we get to the water and immediately I go in. I wanted to show him, like, I'm a bra girl. Oh, this is the best part. So I'm coming out of the water and I'm trying to look like a baddie. Like, I'm trying to walk out all cute, like the hair is wet and everything. And I noticed Pedro was looking at my legs. So I was like, maybe he's trying to shoot his shot. So I went to go tell him something. And I was like, "Why do you keep looking at me?" And he was like, "Look at your legs." I look at my legs. There's a whole ass piece of poop from the beach water.
Story time of how I found out that my mom was putting our dad's ashes in our food. Yep, our mom would put our dead dad's ashes in our dinner. So basically, after my dad died, my mom showed zero emotion. It's like she really didn't care at all. Like she kind of wanted it to happen. His death was like an unsolved case, and nobody knows how he actually died. And now that I get to think about it, it might have been my mom, but I don't want to jump to conclusions. And if it was her and she sees this video, I don't want to end up like him. Anyways, back to the story. So about a month after he died, she would always post a picture of me and my brother's dinner with the caption, "You'll always be with them." Literally every single night. And honestly, nobody really caught on. All the comments were like, we're praying, this and that. Until one day I was just sitting on the couch and I look over and my mom was pouring something into the mashed potatoes. So I go a little closer and I see her pouring the ashes of my dad into our mashed potatoes. Listen, this story only gets 10 times worse, so like for a part 2. Part 2 of how my mom was putting my dad's ashes in me and my brother's dinner. Continuing with the story, after I see her literally pouring my dad's ashes into our mashed potatoes, and I mean, this lady literally sees me staring at her pouring the ashes into our mashed potatoes, and she like doesn't even say anything. I was just, a little shocked. So after that, I just kept quiet until after dinner, and I was mad at my brother that night, so I just let him eat the mashed potatoes. So after dinner, I went up to my mom and asked her why she was putting our dad's ashes in our food. And her exact words were, "Your father was a bad man. He wasn't meant to be here." I said, "What does that have to do with you putting his ashes in our dinner?" She goes, "It will just cleanse your soul. The witches told me to feed my children's father to them." Bishwe? I ended up telling my brother, but then me and him decided not to ever say anything ever again because we don't want her little spirits telling them to do the same thing with us, so... Story time of how I found out that I was dating my own brother. Yes, biological brother, same mom, same dad. So a little background information, my mom passed away when I was 2, my dad is currently in jail, and I live with my grandma. So at the time, I was 14, about to be 15, he was 17, about to be 18. So how this all started is one day I was at the baseball game with my friends and he happened to be there. I was fangirling over this boy. Like, I saw him and I was like, I'm going to marry him one day. I was feeling a little bold, so I went over and got his snap. And then I figured out that he had the same last name as me and I was like, dude, that is dope. My exact words were, now I don't have to change my last name when we get married. So we hung out the rest of the baseball game and I was starting to fall in love with this kid. Like his smile, his laugh, I talked about him to my friends the rest of the night. And me and him started snapping for a while. So we started to hang out a lot. We may have hooked up a couple times. But I had to keep this all secret from my grandma because she forbid I dated somebody. So fast forward a couple weeks, we start dating. Months and months and months go by. Our 9 months come and I finally tell my grandma. And this is where it gets bad. I'm running out of time, like for part 2. Part 2 of how I found out that I was dating my own brother. Continuing on with the story, me and his 9 months were coming up. Also, he was adopted and his foster family absolutely adored me, so they were okay with me keeping it a secret from my grandma. They were the ones to help me tell her. So not only were our 9 months coming up, but his birthday was the next day. And he told me the only thing that he wanted for his birthday was for my part of the family to know that we were together. So one day I sat down at the table and I was like, hey, I think it's about time that I tell you. And then I told her everything and she asked for a picture. I showed her a picture and she was like, aw, he's cute. How old is he? At first she was okay with everything and the age difference she was kind of iffy about, but then she accepted it. Then she asked his name. I told her his name, she said last name, gave her the last name, and she flipped out. She took my phone, didn't give me an explanation, and told me that if I ever spoke to him again, I would never be allowed out of the house. Finally, after she calmed down, she came to tell me that he was my brother. She asked if we had did anything, and I of course said no, but yes, we did. I'm running out of time, like for part 3. Part 3 of how I found out that I was dating my own brother. Continuing on with the story, I didn't believe her not one bit, but then I realized the reason why I was attracted to him is because he kind of looked like me. No, I'm just kidding. All jokes aside, I did start to question because everybody did say we looked like brother and sister. I asked her for proof. She didn't have any actual proof that we were brother and sister, but then everything started adding up. I told him, and then he didn't believe me until he asked his foster parents who his parents were. Mind you, me and him never spoke about our real parents because we both told each other that we were uncomfortable speaking about it. Then we did find out that we had the same exact mom and dad. Me and him were both in absolute shock and had no idea what to do. I mean, we kind of were in love with each other, you know? So we decided to just date for a couple more months. I had to tell my grandma that we broke up and we were just hanging out and getting to know each other as brother and sister. But then we both decided that we needed to break up because it started to get a little weird. We never told absolutely anybody about this but my grandma. His foster parents didn't even know that we were siblings. And to this day, me and him do still flirt. Here's a story time of how I got catfished by my best friend's dad. This story literally ends up taking a turn for the worse, so honestly, be prepared for that. So it was around 6th grade and I had just moved schools and I put on my Snapchat story swipe up to be friends because I didn't really know anybody around me, so I kind of had no friends. So this one dude swipes up and he's like, hey, you're really cute, we should talk more. And I was like, aw, thanks, what you look like? He sends me a couple pictures of himself and he was so hot. So I was like, yes, let's talk more. So we start snapping so much that within a couple hours, he was #1 on my best friends list. He would never show his entire face. He would always show like his jawline and stuff like that. Or like pictures of his underwear. Literally all I ever got was jawline pics or underwear pics. I literally got so comfortable with this dude, I told him stuff that nobody else knew. I told him I loved him and that I was catching feelings. A couple days later, I stayed the night at my best friend's house. She had softball practice, so I stayed at the house with her dad. Once we get back to her house, after dropping her off at softball practice, he said he had a big surprise for me. I'm running out of time, like for part 2. Here's part 2 on how I got catfished by my best friend's dad. Continuing on with the story, my dumb self didn't really think anything of it, so I followed him to his room. He closed the door behind me and he told me to be quiet. I was like, okay, what is this surprise that you have for me? He pulled out his phone and he showed me his Snapchat. And it was the Snap account that I have been snapping for the past couple of weeks. And the same guy that I confessed my love for. Mind you, I'm pretty sure her dad was in his mid-40s at the time. And I was only 12. He told me to give him my phone because I needed to be punished for my actions, so I did. I only did because I was honestly terrified and I had no idea what else to do. He told me since I told him I loved him, I needed to show him that I loved him. And he starts to take his pants off. I turn around and I run out the room and out the house. My house was only a couple houses down, so I ran all the way down to my house and told my mom everything that happened. I don't know if she really believed me, but he ended up convincing us not to press any charges against him. And I was never allowed to see my best friend nor him ever again. P.S. I never got my phone back and we had to move again.
Story time about how my boyfriend's best friend tried to ruin our relationship. So a little background information. My boyfriend used to be best friends with this one girl. We're gonna call her Jamie. Well, Jamie and my boyfriend were best friends for years. And their friendship was more flirty than anything. Well, him and I got to know each other during track season. So we were always hanging out after school. And sometimes Jamie would be there too. Well, the one night him and I were on FaceTime and we were talking about how we really liked each other. So the next day we started dating. And I was good friends with Jamie too. Then after we started dating, she started acting really weird towards me. Like I would try to say hi whenever I saw her in the hallways, and she would just give me a dirty ass look. So then I told my boyfriend how I thought that she was really mad at me, and he said that he would talk to her. Well, a week before him and I started dating, she told us that there was this guy that she really wanted to ask to prom, and she said that she liked him for a while. Well, then my boyfriend said, apparently a few days ago you were hitting on the boy that she was going to ask to prom. So then I started to connect the dots and I was like, oh shit, like for part two. Part two about how my boyfriend's best friend tried to ruin our relationship. So like I said, I started to connect the dots after that. And then I realized that she was talking about my boyfriend. We're just going to call him Josh. So as he's telling me this, I immediately get a FaceTime call from her. So I answer the phone, and she says, well, I think I should just confront the situation now. So the first thing that she says is, you knew I liked Josh. Like, how could you do this to me? I had a poster board and everything. So I'm just like, well, why didn't you tell me that you liked him? And she goes, what the fuck do you mean? Like, you knew. But I was sitting there thinking about the fact that they were best friends for 5 years and nothing ever happened, so it's really not my fault. And then this girl has the nerve to say, I'm pretty sure if you just break up with him now, me and you can get past this and still be friends. So I said no. So then I called my boyfriend, told him that we talked it out, and I didn't even tell him about what she said or anything like that, because I just wanted the situation to be over and done with. So a few weeks after that, she decided to get her brother involved. Her brother and Josh were best friends, by the way. Well, then her brother told Josh that him and I had been hooking up like for part 3. Part 2 about how my boyfriend's best friend tried to ruin our relationship. So like I said, I started to connect the dots after that. And then I realized that she was talking about my boyfriend. We're just gonna call him Josh. So as he's telling me this, I immediately get a FaceTime call from her. So I answer the phone, and she says, well, I think I should just confront the situation now. So the first thing that she says is, you knew I liked Josh. Like, how could you do this to me? I had a poster board and everything. So I'm just like, well, why didn't you tell me that you liked him? And she goes, what the fuck do you mean? Like, you knew. But I was sitting there thinking about the fact that they were best friends for 5 years and nothing ever happened, so it's really not my fault. And then this girl has the nerve to say, I'm pretty sure if you just break up with him now, me and you can get past this and still be friends. So I said no. So then I called my boyfriend, told him that we talked it out, and I didn't even tell him about what she said or anything like that, because I just wanted the situation to be over and done with. So a few weeks after that, she decided to get her brother involved. Her brother and Josh were best friends, by the way. Well, then her brother told Josh that him and I had been hooking up like for part 3. Part 2 about my boyfriend's best friend trying to ruin our relationship. So like I said, then she got her brother involved. And her brother and Josh were best friends. A little background information here. Josh had stopped talking to Jamie for those few weeks after she called me that night because she was making things really awkward in our relationship and just giving us a lot of problems. So the one night, Jamie's brother texts Josh and he's like, bro, I think it's mad sus how you cut her off when your girlfriend's the problem. So obviously Josh texted him and said, what do you mean? And her brother was like, she hits me up all the time to hang out. We've been hooking up. I can even send you the nudes that she sent me. And before I started dating Josh, there was this boy that I was talking to for like 6 months and I ended up sending him nudes. And yes, they got around the school. But surprisingly, Josh had no idea about them. So her brother sent Josh the nudes and said, bro, here, like, see her face is in it and everything. Lesson learned, don't put your face in nudes. So then me and 3 other people explained to my boyfriend that those were from a while ago. And after that, he just blocked both of them and we're still together.